Welcome back to Top Bins off-season edition. Not bringing you all the action from England and Italy, at least the domestic leagues. But we'll be talking some transfers, talking about the finalissima that we had against Argentina and Italy, some transfer news, some players to keep an eye on. I'm your host Matt, joined by my co-host Dom. Dom, how are we doing tonight?
I'm good, man. I just made dinner. Things were very good, so uh, I'm pleased with that. I'm a very happy person, except for one thing. But I'll save that for my final words. I'll save that for my final words.
Okay, we'll saving that for the final words. Well, uh, it's transfer season now, and you're going to be hearing lots of names. You're going to be hearing lots of the same names, and a little exercise I wanted to do, and we'll touch back again next week with this is five players from each league that maybe you don't get a permanent transfer, maybe you don't even move at all, but that you're definitely going to be hearing a lot about this summer. You're going to hear them linked to lots of different teams and clubs and situations. And, by the time you're even listening to this, one of these players might have even moved. Who knows, right? But you're going to hear these guys a lot. And I think sometimes we don't always do the proper justice on how good these players are, what type of style they play in. So I wanted to kind of just highlight and profile five guys that I think. Now, obviously, there are some bigger names that, I didn't want to do Sadio Mane because, frankly, I think at this point, everyone kind of knows what Sadio Mane is as a player. Gabriel Jesus. I think people kind of know these players. I wanted it to be a little off the beaten path, or at least players that I think could maybe find a home somewhere else where their talents excel a little bit. So we're starting with the Premier League this week. We're going to be five players from the Premier League that could be transferring within the league or out of it or wherever. We'll see. But that I just think you're going to be hearing their name, and why not get some information on them so you have some foundation to start with when we talk about these players, when we think about these players. The first one, in no particular order, but is Rafinha from Leeds United. Tricky winger, great creative player. This is a guy that you're definitely. I would be pretty surprised if he's a Leeds player this time next year. I think he seems like the type of guy that is moving on, and I think he looked at the way the season ended, his emotion in some of those games. It seemed like a player that was very happy to have kept Leeds up, knowing that was essentially his last duty, and he was a big part of them staying up. 11 goals and 3 assists this season. That was on 11.2 expected goals and 6.8 expected assists. So he is the main set piece taker and took a lot of the free kicks and corner kicks. So some of the expected assist numbers can be inflated from some of those, but at least projects the type of player that is going to be not just a good goal threat, but especially creative going forward. That's definitely one of his strengths. Another one that I see with him a lot too is he's definitely willing to track back and defend. You look at those those tackling numbers, the pressure numbers from him, and it'd be very hard to survive in Marcelo Bielsa's system if you weren't willing to do some of the defensive dirty work. Pretty much every player has to have some role in that with Bielsa's system, and I would even say with Jesse Marsch. Yeah, he's great at switching the play as well, which is a huge part of the modern game. A lot of the top teams, you need to be able to, hit diagonal balls 40, 50 yards now to beat high lines, to switch the pressure. That's a huge component, I think. And, I've seen him do that a lot. I think he does that quite often in games as well. And he does it very, very well. So I just think he's great kind of modern winger. He's not like what we think of, Mo Salah, right, is, a winger in name only, really. He's really an inverted kind of forward. Whereas Rafinha is a bit more of a classic winger, but he's doing it in a way now that I think, we just haven't seen, the guys that just hug the touchline and are willing to beat guys off the dribble and are just more involved in a little bit in the build-up. And that's what I think impresses me so much of him. He's very comfortable in possession. I think he can operate in many different setups. I don't think he's one of these players that I think has to fit the exact right system. I think he's the type of player that can go to a lot of different clubs in a lot of different leagues and excel in. And, we've seen it. He's a great dribbler. We've seen him, he doesn't have the best success rate, but he's also a high volume dribbler as well. But he's not beating his man every single time. But we've all seen the highlights, we've all seen the clips. We know what a great first touch he has. We know he has really good speed, has just great awareness too, great body control. As far as like being an athlete goes, Rafinha is really really good.
I think he's very creative in the dribble. And I think that, especially this season, he's come more into himself as an attacker and actually a goal scorer instead of a creator. Last year, he had 6 goals. This year, he increased that tally by 5. But last season, he was also more of a playmaker with 9 assists compared to his 3 this year. So it seems like the system that they're using now at Leeds is more, centered around him and like him getting his chances and putting the ball in the back of the net. Granted, right, Bamford was injured for a lot of the season, so goals had to come from somewhere. So Rafinha stepped up and definitely put himself on the map for any team looking for like a right winger.
Yeah, listen. If your team is in that market, and there are probably going to be a few, Liverpool could even be one of those. I know Bayern has been interested in him. Barcelona have been interested in him. Some of the big hitters. Dom is pointing to the Milan jersey behind him. He would do well at Milan. Him and Rafa Leao on opposite wings, I think would be amazing. Fantastic. Haven't seen him linked there. He is going to cost a lot. He's certainly not going to be a cheap player, especially because Leeds didn't get relegated. That really seemed like had they gone down, he probably would have been a very affordable player for lots of teams. And maybe that's where Milan maybe get in the conversation, although the big boys are definitely swooping in for him, with some kind of relegation clause. But this is a guy that's going to cost probably, 40, 50 million pounds. And, that's just the going rate now for this type of player. 25 years old, left-footed, Brazilian. I think he's got really good potential. I think he's a really smart player. I'm looking forward to see where he ends up. Even if he stays at Leeds, which I don't think is totally out of the question. He's said in interviews that it's all about playing time for him. We can't forget that the World Cup is in November this year, and we've often seen that players. It's a bit of a double-edged sword where some players want to reestablish themselves somewhere new and are happy to do it in a World Cup year, where some players are almost fine with sitting on their current situation, knowing that they're at least going to be getting playing time, rather than risk that move where maybe you're not getting the playing time and then falling out of the national team, especially with a very competitive squad like Brazil. I wouldn't say there's tons at his position. It's not like, there's a lot at the right wing for Brazil at the moment. But, when you think of all the attackers that they have, it's a nation that certainly is not, thirsty for attacking talent and talent in general. So you getting playing time, I think, is important for his ambition.
Yeah.
Next player is his teammate, Calvin Phillips. This is a player that we've heard a lot about over the last few seasons. Had the distinction of being in the England squad while being in the championship, which is pretty rare. Not very often that happens. Yeah, he's an interesting one because he obviously had a really injury-riddled campaign this year. Didn't see as much of him as we saw in his and Leeds' return to the Premier League the year before in 2020, 2021. But what we have seen of him and what we've seen him in for England is it's just kind of a classic destroyer in the midfield. He's great at breaking up play. You look at his numbers: high interceptions, high pressures, high block numbers, good tackler. Like, if you're just looking for a player that's going to be very defensive focused and again just constantly just destroying the rhythm of the opponent, this is your guy. My concerns with him is that he's not that great in possession, not an accurate passer. Now, some of that too is the lead system, and Rafinha has some of this to the fault as well, where some of the long passing isn't as great. Lead system under Bielsa did kind of force you to play at times maybe more high-risk passes, and Calvin Phillips, I think, falls into that trap, but only has an 83% completion rate. This was in 2020, 2021. It wasn't any better in this past year, but I kind of X'd that out because he did have such a stop-start season with some of the injuries and stuff. I think it was around 82% for this past year. So again, no noticeable improvement. So 83%, just to give an idea of some other like midfielders in his position too, as a more defensive minded midfielder. Rodri from Manchester City this past year, 92.8% completion rate, just fantastic. He had a great year. Fabinho with an 88% completion rate. Xhaka with an 87% completion rate. Conte 87.3. Bentancur 87.7. Scott McTominay 85.4. So you look around his kind of what you would hope his contemporaries would be, because Calvin Phillips, if he moves, is moving into the certainly the top 6 somewhere, right? Like he's not really making. Aston Villa have certainly been interested in him, and that is their ambition to be in the top 6. But these are the types of players, at least in league standing, that would be around him that you would be comparing him to, and that pass completion rate has to improve. He has to be smarter at that. He is also not asked a lot to pass. He's definitely that is going to be something that is required of him. Should he move to a bigger team, like he's gonna have to be more involved in build up. He's gonna have to be more involved in possession. So that's an area of improvement for him for me, and he's also deceptively like. He's kind of old too. I think people have built up Calvin Phillips to be this like under 23 player, like rising. He's 26. He's not what I like. Listen, I'm 27 going on 28, so I'm not going to say that 26 is old, but I think there's this misconception that simply because he's newer to the Premier League and he's kind of it's the first time a lot of people have been seeing him in the last few years that he must be a young star, and he's 26. I don't know, like. He's a year younger than Raheem Sterling. It's really not that. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not trying to sour on Calvin Phillips. I'm just trying to give like what my honest feel of him is that I think he has great aspects. I think he's a great defensive player. But I just worry that when it comes to being a midfielder, I think there's something lacking that could be an issue. Should he go to a top team? And maybe I'm wrong about that for sure. But that's my concern with Calvin Phillips.
I wanted to, because I think most of the people that you named with similar stats were all Prem players, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so I looked up a couple Serie A players that kind of, just to compare. Like, for example, Marcelo Brozovic was 91.3%. Sandro Tonali was 81%, so he was 0.5% less than Calvin Phillips. And I would probably say the same thing like you said. A lot of those long passes, more risky passes, trying to set teammates up.
They
probably
get
in the way of that.
I would say they play a similar type of style as well.
The only difference is Tonali has room to grow because he is young, and Calvin Phillips is on the other end of that. So, if I looked up, let's see, Arturo Vidal, pass completion 86.7. Even that's a much better percentile. Calvin Phillips was in the 40th percentile. So it's kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, I think it's again, you just talk about weaknesses in his game, and I think that is one of them. Again, we've seen him play for England and it not be as big of an issue, but again, those England teams were built up to be defensive brick walls. They were built up to play. If you're thinking about it in league, standings type of way. They were built more like a lower mid-table team that was just trying to just constantly like soak up pressure and knew that they had the great counter ability that they do. And again, he's been linked with Manchester City. Not that I think that's necessarily going to happen, but first of all, I don't see how he's being linked there because Rodri is so good at his position. I don't see it, and I don't see where Calvin Phillips really fits anywhere else in that midfield. But also, I don't know how you can have a player that just isn't good at passing, or at least hasn't shown that flash yet in his career, at Manchester City, the most like pass dominant team in the league. I struggle with that. And maybe he goes to United, who knows? But then there's obviously the Leeds and United connection. Would he do that? Who knows? And he's certainly not going to be cheap either, which is I think a huge hindrance. Like you're paying a lot of money. If you're going to be paying 70, 80 million, I would be testing West Ham's resolve for Declan Rice over Calvin Phillips. I think, a lot of the Calvin Phillips maybe should be going more towards Declan Rice. Not that I think Declan Rice is, this untouchable player and is so perfect in all these ways, but I think he's a better player than Calvin Phillips is. And if you're going to be spending that type of money on an English product, I think you could do better.
I agree.
Maybe Declan's more expensive. Who knows? But that's the beef on Calvin Phillips. I'm interested to see what happens to him. It's hard to see Rafinha and Calvin Phillips both going, but who knows, right? I think we might get another year of Calvin Phillips at Leeds and see where we kick on from there.
Hey, I have a 25 and a half year old from the Serie A who only had like 2% better pass completion percentage. Could you guess who that is?
That is the most vague thing you could have given me.
He may be the best midfielder in the league.
Barella?
Yeah. So that was actually surprising as I'm looking
Barella
up the
is
stats.
the thing with Barella though. Here's the thing with Calvin Phillips, right? Is he's not a high volume passer, and like he's not making these like real progressive passes either. He's certainly taking some risks. Nico Barella is like the primary passer for Inter. So it it's like when people like to make an NBA analogy, right? Like I would rather have the 3-point shooter shooting 38% but shooting like 11 threes a night than the 3-point shooter shooting like 42 but shooting only like 4 times a night. Like
Yeah,
it's just when you're that high volume and maybe your percentage isn't as great, but you're able to pull off the amazing and able to be like such
that's fair.
a spearhead of the attack. Calvin Phillips is not asked to do that a lot. He's not a high volume passer, at least to this point. So it just, I'm a little worried about that. That's all. I just think that's
That's
a little
fair.
interesting. Nico Barella is like he's like high difficulty type of player, in what he does. I would love to do a profile breakdown on him, but I don't see him leaving Inter. So, he's off the board for me for next week. This guy though, Mark Cucurella, former Barcelona
Great player.
product at Getafe, and then now with Brighton, had a fantastic year with Brighton. I believe he was their player of the season. Just a great fullback, and I was interested at he's filtered into center back a little bit this season, and I think he's been linked a lot to Manchester City, and I think it makes a ton of sense. Even before Brighton, I thought and I follow some Barcelona people on Twitter, and they were really upset that he wasn't in Barcelona's plans, and feels like one of these like young Barcelona products that squeaks away, and it happens, right? But that maybe they regret because I think he's a fantastic fullback, offers a lot in a lot of different ways, and I think is I would not be surprised to see him end up at Manchester City, if that is the case, because Cancelo really is more of a right back. I know he played a lot at both positions this year, but I think that's really his best natural position. And having him and Cucurella on opposite wings, I think would be fantastic for them. But yeah, he has that ability again to flip between left back to center back. He can play a little bit more forward too. It's very tailor made for like some of these like really possession based systems, and we've seen that with Brighton. He's able to get forward. He's a good creative fullback. He's quietly been like outside of Reece James, Trent Alexander-Arnold, one of the more and João Cancelo, one of the more creative fullbacks in the Premier League. Lots of key passes, lots of chances created. Brighton unfortunately just didn't have the the striker this year, as we lamented so much, to actually finish that off. So yeah, he's versatile in possession because of the way that he can cover a few different positions, and he has the athleticism to cover ground, which is fantastic. Only had a goal and 2 assists this year, which isn't like an amazing return, but again, I think that's with the caveat of on a Brighton team that wasn't producing a ton offensively. I think, if he goes to a team with just better pieces around him, I think this is a guy that can really excel. He had the most attempted and completed passes at Brighton this past season. He's one of their top tacklers as well, especially in the final 2/3 of the field. Like he is so good at getting forward and pressing and winning the ball back, and that's huge. And if you look at the way the top teams play, that is the way that they want to play. Is winning the ball in the final 2/3 of the field. That's where they want, especially fullbacks now, to be. Yeah, he shows good pressing ability. He's the most touches in the middle and final third for Brighton this year. Like he's so involved in everything they do, possession wise and build up wise, like entry passes into the box, and I just think he's fantastic. I could totally see him, and looking deeper into his numbers, I knew that he'd had a really strong season. It wasn't until I really sat down, I watched some highlights of his, and I looked at the numbers, that I thought I can totally see why Manchester City are interested in this guy, because he fits a lot of what they like. He fits a lot of, I think, what the good profile now for a fullback is. And I think he could be a huge player.
Whenever I happen to turn on a Prem game and Brighton was playing, this guy is always in the mix. Always. I mean, 80th percentile for shot creating actions, 89 percentile for passes attempted. I mean, he's got a really high percentile for progressive passes. I mean, like you said, the stats are there, right? But he's unfortunately playing on a team that doesn't end up converting a lot of chances and things like that. And I think that's that's that next step forward when he does find a team. Hopefully he can flourish with that, because yeah, he is what the modern fullback is. They get forward, they get involved in the offensive play, but they're still very solid defensively. And it was actually kind of, I was looking at these statistics, and versus center backs, he's actually got mad stats.
Yeah.
Like
So,
if
because
he
of
can
how it's a little unfair when you look at him on FB and you match him up with the center backs. 'Cause I did the same thing, and he's like 99th percentile in
nutty,
everything.
right?
The only other center back that I think profiles like that is a player that we'll talk about probably next week, which is Bastoni.
Yeah.
But it's a little unfair because Kukurea, he doesn't.
He doesn't
He's
really
not,
play
he's
there.
not really a
Yeah.
center back. He fills in there and he phases in and out. And I think the way Brighton play allows that type of. And listen, if he goes to a top team like City, it's the same thing there, where you are able to filter and rotate a little bit in those positions. That's the way Pep likes his teams to play. It's no two players are ever occupying the same zone with him, right? That's why Pep is so crazy about the half spaces. And if you've ever seen like the very like popular image of his training pitches and how they're cut up and divided, because he wants these players to be operating in all these different zones, because it's so hard as a defense to live with that when you have so much to worry about and constantly being overloaded. So Kukurea, in that way, in that system, you consider he's a La Masia product, of course, too. Like, that's going to just, Pep is over the moon, I'm sure, at
Probably.
that possibility. But he fills a position need for them. I think they have to be thinking of the future. He's 23 years old. I think he'll be turning 24 this summer. So he's young. He's got room to grow still. He's already established. Very strong player. He fits. He ticks a lot of the boxes for what Manchester City are looking for players. I think it fills a position need, because really Zinchenko could be leaving this summer. Again, Cancelo is probably better on the right. You have to be thinking about Kyle Walker probably isn't at this level for the next 3 years, 4 years. You have to be thinking towards the future a little bit there. Kukurea seems like the guy that might be the move for them. Another guy, this is Conor Gallagher. I'm not sure I see a permanent move for him this summer. And if I was Conor Gallagher's agent, his friend, his brother, Brian Gallagher or something, I would be telling Conor Gallagher to go on loan again, because I think it's a dangerous proposition heading back to Chelsea, where I don't know where he fits totally in their system. I don't know where he fits in any system, actually, is my take on Conor Gallagher, because he's kind of an enigma to me. And he has been all season, and I've had a difficult time really figuring out where Conor Gallagher would be best at, because he's sort of a box-to-box midfielder, but not really. He does some defensive work. He's not good at passing, similar to Calvin Phillips. Not a great passer. Not high volume.
Crazy.
Not high volume, and not high actual completion rate either. But he has 8 goals, 3 assists this past year. That was on 5.8 expected goals and 3.5 expected assists. So overperformed XG a little bit. That isn't. Sometimes we can look at that and say, oh, I don't know. Maybe it was just a bit of luck, and that's true. Sometimes it can also be a good thing, and maybe he's just a very good finisher. I don't know that he's that good that he's overperforming, by 2.2 goals, but he does find himself in good positions. He seems to really have a good eye for those runs into the box, and I think has some good positional awareness that could definitely lend itself to him being just a good finisher, especially for a midfielder. But I'm not sure it's quite at that level. He's really aggressive in the final third. He's happy to get shots and gets them on goal at a good rate. You look at his numbers, he does that better than a lot of midfielders do. But again, he's not a polished passer. This is a guy that he definitely takes some risks. I think a part of the Crystal Palace team, he was a bit of the talisman for them this year, and was one of the guys expected to make a lot of the big highlight plays, and I think tried that maybe a bit too much. He wasn't asked to pass a whole lot. If you look at his numbers, they're very low in terms of how much he's attempting. He really was just kind of an energy box-to-box midfielder that was able to get goals, and I think there's value in that. I'm just not sure. I don't really think that fits at Chelsea. When you look at his comparisons to Conte, Kovacic, Jorginho, he doesn't fit either of those molds. The only thing he gets close to is with Kovacic, in that he's a very good ball progressor, just like Kovacic, but Kovacic is a fantastic passer. To this point, Gallagher doesn't have that. Now, he's only 22. He has definitely room to grow in that regard. I'm not saying this is him as a finished article, as a terrible passer. Just saying right now, him as a player, this is something that he has to improve on if he wants to be at Chelsea, if he wants to be at these other top clubs. And that's why I don't think it would be good for him to be there, because I don't know where he fits. I do see him. It's strange. And I felt this way about him all season, and then I looked up the numbers, and they're very similar. He's very Mason Mount, where he's a sort of midfielder that's probably better almost as a winger, but not quite a winger, but like an inside forward, but also not really a forward. Like, he's like this strange player that is good in like the final third. I think Mason Mount is more well-rounded and is the better passer here. And that's certainly backed up by the numbers. And we looked at Mason Mount's assist numbers this year too. Obviously helps he's playing with Chelsea, but still, they are a similar type of player. And I think that's where Conor Gallagher could find success. Now again, he's 22. There's plenty of time in his career to change that. I think he could operate potentially as a more like wide player. I think if we were like in 2005 and the 4-4-2 was still a thing, I think he would be a great like outside mid in that system. He tracks a lot for what those players could be really successful at. I just think I just don't know where he fits. That's my only beef with Conor Gallagher. I don't know where he fits. He has to improve passing. It has to be better. I think that's something that he can mature with. It's always tough with these younger guys. Sometimes decision making improves as they get older. Sometimes it doesn't. He seems like the type of player, just from interviews I've listened to about him and the way people talk about him, that certainly seems like he's going to be improving. Doesn't seem like one of these guys that you get that are younger that stall out because they don't have the motivation or they don't put the effort in. Does not seem like one of those players. If his career doesn't go to like the ultimate heights, I don't think it's going to be for lack of trying on Conor Gallagher. That's such a hard name. Conor Gallagher.
What I see that this stat table is very interesting, and as I'm reading it, as you're giving the profile for Conor, like it kind of matched exactly what I was thinking, right? When you look at his stats as like a midfielder, more like the box to box kind of guy, he's got some really good offense. Like, he creates chances, he gets a lot of shots and things like that. He's in very high percentiles for that, aside from assists. And then you look, and his dribbles completed, his touches, his progressive passes, those are all very high. And he also is very high in pressures. So it shows that he likes to, like, on the defensive side, kind of push forward and kind of try to win the ball so that he can again go forward and try to create a chance from that. And then his, like you said, his passing is absolutely horrendous there. But then when you switch it, his passing is a little bit better as an attacking mid or / like winger. His like defensive stats are good, so that shows he definitely likes to press up and get forward. But his like attacking stats when he's playing more advanced up the field are not as good, right? If he's looking to kind of take that next step, like you said, is his passing, but especially as that midfielder, right? Being able to kind of work in that space, win the ball back, and maybe make those like key passes, kind of like some of the players we were talking about previously, right? Kind of that deal where if you keep up this defensive work rate and you're still one of those aggressive going forward type of midfielders, if you can extend your game and improve your passing, it's going to, increase chances for both you and the team.
Yeah, he has good defensive work rate too, but he definitely bites still on like I was going through watching some of his highlights, watching some of his clips, and a lot of times people put in the clips of them like he's tracking back and this is amazing, and it is good. Like you want that from your midfielder, but there's times where he's like over aggressive on players, and again, maybe that's something that he matures with, gets a better understanding, and once I think the issue is maybe at Crystal Palace, he didn't have a totally defined role. I think he was sort of free to roam a little bit, and that was good in some aspects. I think that helped him in some ways, and I think we saw that especially in the goal production. I think though, if he's going to be better, if he's really going to like have like a top career, I think that needs to be narrowed in what he is. I don't know, like I have a hard time placing him in terms of position, and I don't know exactly where the best fit for him is. maybe even back at Crystal Palace next season. I'm sure they'd love to have him on loan again. I have a really bad feeling if he goes and tries to be like, I'm gonna stamp my authority and be a Chelsea. I don't see that going well. I don't think he fits the midfield profile for what Tuchel wants, and I'm not sure he's unseating anyone in those like forward rotational roles. Maybe he does. We've seen that Tuchel is like happy to rotate and try new things, and maybe there's some going outs this year and there's some transfers and there's space for him there, and maybe that's where he flourishes, is more an advanced position. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see where he ends up. This next player I put on pretty much for you, Dom, because I know he's a big Milan target. But it's a player.
I was very happy to see this one.
He's a player that I think is fascinating and has been fascinating for a while. I'm talking about Hakim Ziyech. He's an attacking midfielder, kind of winger. He's a little bit in between. It's hard to really say. That's really with a lot of these Chelsea like attacking midfield winger players. They don't really fit like a total like archetype positional role. But he is a more advanced player. And he had 4 goals, 3 assists in the league this year. That was on 3.4 expected goals and 3.4 expected assists. So, pretty much to where he should have been. He wasn't underperforming really by too much. What you need to know about Ziyech, he's an effective crosser. He finds himself, I like to call it the Kevin De Bruyne spot, or the Trent Alexander-Arnold spot. If you can think of just breaking up the field into a bunch of little rectangles, it's the rectangle right above the penalty box where they just station themselves, and it's such a good area to whip crosses in. Ziyech excels in that area as well. You'll find him in that space a lot for teams, and he is dangerous. Has a fantastic left foot that he can put a lot of dangerous balls in. Good entry passer. Like, he's really good around the box at breaking down defenses, and he's able to find that really good ball. So yeah, I think he's a really good final third player. Not a successful dribbler. This is a guy that has a pretty bad dribbling success rate, and isn't like super high volume with that either. But he can, get himself forward in different ways. The biggest thing is he finds himself. I think his positioning is very good. I think Ziyech is very good at finding the open spaces. You can see that in his progressive passes received number. He's very high in that percentile, and that's because he's constantly finding himself in good position where he can receive the ball in advanced area and then move on from there. So, he's a bit of an odd mix of qualities, I would say, in terms of what he's great at or what he isn't good at.
Aside from that, too, he likes to shoot the ball well, too. I mean, he's in the 97th percentile per 90 for shots, like total shots. And he can shoot them from far out. He's used to crossing once he does that. I mean, he scored a couple in the Champions League that were incredible.
Yeah, I have on here a willing shooter. He is happy. He's happy to take shots, which, again, if you're looking at someone like Milan, right? They are a team that could use something like that, because they're a team that I think is lacking at times in someone just willing to take a shot on. He is an inaccurate passer, though. Doesn't have the best pass completion rate. I don't know that that's totally his game, but I do think that's something that could be, a weakness for him and a weakness for any team scouting him. Also doesn't have the best running numbers. Again, we're talking the Milan link up, but Milan were obviously a team last year that was very focused on running, that was very focused on pressing. He's certainly capable of doing those things, but he's not like the face of that, right? I think he has the ability, of course, to do it. The thing is, I see him kind of more as a forward than a midfielder, but also not quite totally a forward. He's kind of a tweener for me. Didn't have a ton of minutes this year either, which could definitely mean that he is on his way out. I know Pulisic, it's actually between him and Christian Pulisic for this final spot, and guys I wanted to profile, just because I do think one of them could be gone this summer for Chelsea, and maybe even both of them in the next few seasons. Pulisic, there's a lot of noise about him not staying there long term, and Ziyech, it feels like could be moved on too. We'll have to see, but yeah, Ziyech, he's an interesting player. I would love to see him move on. I think he would do well in Milan if that's where he ends up, and he would fill definitely a need for them, a creative need. But again, similar to Gallagher almost, where it's like it's hard to place where Ziyech is best, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only real concern, right? Is his work rates. I mean, he's not the best runner, and Yeah, a lot of more modern systems put a big emphasis on pressing. You see all like the top teams, they're pressing high up the field and want to suffocate their opponent until they score a couple goals. So um, for whatever team brings him in, they have to realize that and either be able to unlock that in him or he becomes a role player for whatever team he ends up joining.
Yeah, so he's again, he's a very good player. I think wherever he ends up, he could bring some value. I don't know that we've just seen it enough at Chelsea. Some of that has been a little bit of unluckiness and things out of his control, but we just haven't
If
seen
he
it.
can find that Ajax form.
Right. I mean, Ajax, that last Ajax season he had was fantastic. Really, every Ajax player off that team actually is probably wishing that they could get like their 2019 selves back. Frankie De Jong would love to play like that again. I think Matthijs de Ligt would love to play like that again. I certainly think Donny Van de Beek would love to play like that again. It's yeah. I think just about everyone from that Ajax team would like to have it back. To the way that it was. No Harry Styles. We did have the Finalissima, Dom. The most random big trophy all of a sudden that's like a thing now, where we have the CONMEBOL winner play the Euro winner. It's cool. I like these games. I think this is cool. I'd like to see more of this kind of stuff. I'm a type of person that likes the Confederations Cup. I think it's a cool idea that you get these teams that maybe don't get to play each other very often, especially with some actual stakes. Argentina 3, Italy 0. Just wanted to highlight this because Messi with another international trophy. He had a fantastic performance. Lautaro Martinez, also a goal. Paulo Dybala, also a goal. Maybe teammates next year. Who knows? But they played well in the final, especially Martinez. It was one of the better games I've seen from him, certainly in an Argentina shirt. But they absolutely ran through Italy. Italy did not look fantastic. Do like the new jerseys, though, from Italy. I think they look very clean, but not the best performance, if we're being honest. Almost an own goal, disastrous own goal. Chiellini back to Donnarumma. Donnarumma just something that you know what? Maybe it's been.
Go ahead. No, speak your mind. I am more than okay with.
He is like just a scarecrow to me. He's a scarecrow with like ball bearings in his legs. Like he's just a lumbering person. I don't. It's hard to watch sometimes. He's a good goalkeeper,
God,
but listen, we've seen that PSG Real Madrid. He gets bullied off the ball once the foul, doesn't get it. That's the turning point in that game. Almost a disastrous own goal. I felt some of the goals that Argentina scored probably could have done a little better. And the chip from Di Maria, I think, was where he definitely could have been better. But
generational talent. That is generational talent.
Yeah, still behind Keylor Navas at PSG. Have fun, Chief.
Hey, he chased the bag. That's what he gets now. So.
Well, fair enough. Transfer gossip roundup. Favorite time of the year, because we talk about these things like they're definitely going to happen, and we theorize what they'll look like when they'll happen, and then they don't happen, and we just forget about it. That's the best thing, is we're going to talk about like 6 or 7 things in the next like 15 minutes or so, and there's no guarantee that any of those 6 or 7 things happen, and then this, like in a month, even in a year, we won't recollect that at all. We'll be like, I don't remember. That's crazy. Can't believe that was a thing that was written about. Now, some of these might actually happen.
Unless you're a part of Milan Twitter.
I try and pick the things that seem likely, at least like entertainable, because outside of that, I mean, you could just pick any rumor and say, like I heard Vinicius Jr. is going to be at Chelsea next year. Like that's what I read. So, Lukaku back to Inter. We highlighted this last week because apparently his agent or lawyer was going to be in Milan to discuss terms. It seems like it is picking up some speed. It seems like there's at least some discussion between the clubs of what a like wage paying structure would look like. Chelsea are going to be paying Lukaku like 150,000 a week to be playing in Milan. It seems like, which is just insane and stupid. Terrible signing. It's turning out for Chelsea, but he could be back to Inter, which is interesting because it's no longer Conte's system, which is where he excelled so much. It's Inzaghi now. I still think he could fit in that role, but I don't know what went wrong for Lukaku. I don't know what really happened at Chelsea that it just didn't work. I don't get what it is. I don't know that we'll ever really know. It feels like something just behind the scenes or something mental. It's strange because he looked amazing last year for Inter. Well, I should say last year, really, at this point. But and it was just awful. It was awful at Chelsea. It never looked good. He had like a few moments, but not what you want at all from a very, very expensive player.
He had his whole "I'm coming home, coming home." He had his whole moment, and then what happened? I mean, it's kind of scary, but you with him coming back to Italy, but you bring up that good point. It's a new system, right? And even in Conte's system, Edin Dzeko was like crazy for them, and or actually no, they just signed him. They signed
Edin Dzeko was
this year.
like his replacement with
Yeah.
Inzaghi.
And you see how like the big striker kind of works in that system, and it started off well. It was like good, and then Dzeko kind of like fell off. Like Lautaro's the man there. Lautaro is the guy, and I mean they do have a good duo. They both enjoyed playing with each other. So who knows if Lukaku does end up back in Inter, that could be huge for them. It's just is this the big money splash that Inter do want to make? You know what I mean?
It's going to be like a 3-year loan with a whatever.
If they're able to work something out like that with Chelsea, that would be absolutely ridiculous. I would be pissed even more than just them signing the money outright. I'd rather them waste the money on like a 5-year deal for Lukaku and get 2 good seasons out of him. Like,
speaking of waste of money, Paul Pogba back in Juventus. What are we feeling here? Because it seems like it's picking up some steam.
I thought it was basically done. I thought it was like done and done.
I don't know what to make of it. Paul Pogba is an enigma to me because he is clearly a talented player. Like, obviously. So obviously is. I've never seen the ratio of talent to effectiveness so heavy. Like, he's the most ineffective but most talented player I think I've ever seen. It's unreal. He's so clearly talented. So clearly.
He's so good.
Such a good passer. Elite ball control. And yet it doesn't matter. Like it defies logic and understanding. He's such an interesting player to me for that reason. If he thinks he's returning to Juventus and it's going to be like the comfy, like midfield setup he had last time, it's not that.
No, not at all.
It's not. It's the Wild West there, brother. You got Locatelli and Zakaria and Weston McKennie who's going to convince you to put ranch on your pizza. Like brother, it is not what you left it as. It is a much different Turin now.
Man, it's not like the days of Marquisio and Vidal, right?
No Pirlo to bail you out, Chief. No, I don't know how this works. Him and Rabiot maybe connect.
Well, Pogba's now gonna have to be that Pirlo guy. It's like, will he? Yeah, that face you just made.
It's like I'm speechless. I can't put into words what it is about Pogba that just doesn't make sense to me. But like again, I recognize he's talented, and I think so many people do. But like the dude just doesn't fucking do anything either. Like it's just like it's so hard. I don't want to be too like Graham Souness or Roy Keane here, but like you can't tell me that Pogba's been an effective player in the last 5 years because he just hasn't. He's put up some numbers, sure. But it's also been the objectively the worst period in Manchester United's history. Like I don't know, man. I'm
I'm interested if he does move to see how he does fare in Serie A. I mean, you're gonna be playing about a third of the table, which are a tier lower than most Premier League teams. So I mean, it's he's gonna have his moments. He's gonna have his highlights. He may hit like a 30-yard banger against like Empoli or something like that, like
Mario Balotelli style.
Yeah, you know what I mean, like something like that. It kind of screams of one of those types of moves, right? It kind of like that Balotelli type move when he went to Milan from City. So
yeah. I don't know if you saw this, Dom. I think it's June 17th. And this is one of my least favorite things. So there was the whole like Pog back thing. When he went back to United, I hated that. It was like that was like when they were doing Dab University with him and Jesse Lingard. It made me want to just vomit all over myself. Well, he has the Pogba-mentary. It's supposed to be like a Pogba documentary. The Pogba-mentary.
Pogba-mentary?
I think it's June 17th. Maybe he'll tell us where he's going. In the lead up to that,
why didn't they say like Pogumentary or something like?
Dom, listen, I don't know. I really don't understand it. But shout out to Pogamentary, whatever.
My chat is telling you to respect ranch on pizza.
That's disgusting, and you should be convicted of a war crime. If you put ranch on your pizza,
No, not. So wait.
ranch belongs on pizza in one very specific circumstances, which would be a buffalo chicken pizza. That is the only circumstance you can put ranch on your pizza.
No chicken
Outside
bacon
of
ranch
that,
pizza.
huh?
Chicken bacon ranch pizza.
Dom, I'm vegan.
Yeah, you're right. I know. Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that part. I forgot about
But
that part.
I like even in like an alternate like vegan ranch. I'm sorry, but it's just like, listen, pizza's. We need to stop. Pizza's objectively a bad food for you, and it's fine because there's nothing wrong with eating at times some unhealthy food and like enjoying food. That's cool. You don't need to put ranch, maybe the most unhealthy condiment, on already what is a very unhealthy food item. You just don't need to do it. And like pizza exists fine without ranch. You don't need, outside of the very specific circumstances, your chicken, bacon, whatever, your buffalo chicken, whatever. I just don't think you need to put ranch on your pizza. And Weston McKennie does not need to tell Giorgio Chiellini the first time that he's meeting him over lunch, an Italian man, about how
that
in America we put ranch on our pizza.
That was wild.
As the ambassador to America in Turin, Italy, he did bad stuff for us.
Absolutely wild. That is wild.
That was my only good part of the Amazon Juventus documentary was everyone's dumbfounded face when Weston McKennie was trying to explain ranch on pizza to Giorgio Chiellini. That was the only redeemable part of that show. Spurs United are chasing Alessandro Bastoni. I think Inter would be maybe this would maybe be the dumbest thing they could do. Would be to buy Bremer, which seems like what they're doing, and sell Bastoni. If they move on from Skriniar, fine. I think you can live without him. If they sell Bastoni, not even as an Inter fan, I would be livid. That would be the stupidest thing. And I don't think this is even a Lukaku Hakimi thing where it's like, well, you move forward, you move on. I think Bastoni is so perfect for the way they want to play. He's young, talented. Why? Why on God's green earth would you, unless it's like 140 million, something insane. Even then, I think he's so valuable. He's so good. If Inter sell him, stupid. Very, very stupid. Very, very naive, I would say.
That being said, I hope that Inter do sell him. I really hope that this goes through. He's a perfect fit at Spurs, and they will reach top 2, top 3 if they sign him. So please.
Yeah, I think the only thing that's separating Spurs from winning the Premier League title, the only chasm between the like 35 points they need to make up to win the title is Alessandro Bastoni. Actually, I think that's where they make it up. I do think he'd be an amazing signing for them, and he would fill a need. Him to United is like no shot. Does that work? Because even how much I love Bastoni, not gonna.
He's so stupid.
I do think he's a center back that works at his absolute best at a 3 center back, like working. Like I don't know that what makes Bastoni so good works as well in a 2-back system. I don't know that.
I feel like if he is going to go to England, I feel like he would go to the place he feels most comfortable, right? With his old coach playing in the system he excelled in.
Link up with former Atalanta youth product Christian Romero. Like it's just the boys like back together.
Yeah, it just makes sense, doesn't it? So I don't see the United move happening at all.
I'm just telling you what the papers say, Dom. But him to Spurs has been talked about a lot, and Bremer is coming, it seems, to Inter, and maybe Bremer's on the show next week. Maybe he's one of our top 5 players. You'll just have to tune in to find out. But I hate Bremer. I don't think he's very good. I think he's a little overrated. But again, I'm not going to get ahead of my dinner here. Di Maria still undecided. He said he's going to wait till after the international break and taking some time with his family before he makes his choice. Juventus seem like one of the clubs that he's very close to joining. There's also been a lot of rumors about Barcelona, which would be fascinating. I think he's still very, very good. I can see why maybe PSG are willing to move on, but I think any team that gets him on like a year or 2 deal is probably doing pretty well for themselves. I think he's still a very productive player, still very good. And I think Dom is again begging Milan to spend some money. I mean, he would definitely be great for Milan for sure. But wherever he ends up, I think I think teams are getting a pretty nice deal out of that for like a stopgap situation for like a year or two to get Di Maria. I think that's actually pretty nice. Giovanni Simeone, podcast favorite. He's in the podcast starting 11, maybe. I don't know. We loved him this year at Hellas Verona. This is interesting, right? So he's obviously his parent club is still Cagliari. He's not staying with Verona for a loan situation any longer, going back to Cagliari. He's obviously going to be sold. I don't know where the hell Simeone ends up exactly in Italy. And I don't know how to figure him out because it feels like this year was a bit of a fluke. It felt like a little bit of overperformance. But, you never know. There are teams out there that'll be interested in. He's been linked with Juventus as a backup option. I don't know that they spend the money on that situation there. I think they could spend their dollars elsewhere, probably a little bit better. But it's hard to see. If Milan weren't signing Origi, I would almost say that they would be interested, but I think it would be a bad decision because I don't. But that would have, like, if this was 2017, Milan would be buying Giovanni Simeone this summer.
Yeah.
I think would be like he would be like the Mattia Destro kind of deal, right? Where it's like we're going in for this guy.
God,
no
how well did that one work out? Jesus.
I think he scored like 3 goals this year, so like pretty good. How's Patrick Catrone, by the way? Your boy.
Hey, listen. I prefer not to speak about that.
It's okay. Listen, we've all gotten it wrong before. There's no shame in it at all. Farewell to Giorgio Chiellini, Dom. He's going to the City of Angels, LAFC.
LA.
2 former Italy players now moving on to MLS, him and Lorenzo Insigne. Very different worlds, I would say, Toronto to LA. Very different weather. I think Lorenzo Insigne is going to be really regretting that decision in October when it's like 2 degrees in Toronto by that time already. I can't think of a more... I'm actually really thinking about this. Not that Toronto's a bad city. I can't think of like maybe 2 more like different worlds than Toronto and Naples. Like going from the south of Italy, like peak Mediterranean diet, food, and weather to Toronto, poutine, cloudy skies, and snow. Like,
he must be a very big Drake fan or something like that, and that's why he's moving over. Like,
I think he's
I
think
guarantee
he's a very
you,
big money fan. I think
well, that too. But I guarantee you, this man, as soon as he touches down in like Toronto, within a week, he's got a picture with Drake up on his Instagram. I'm telling you, Drake's gonna be towering over that little
Drake
man.
knows who Lorenzo Insigne is? Like,
Drake watches soccer.
I know, but is he like in the tier of players? Because Drake like watches soccer, like he watches sports. Do you think like he's in the tier of player that Drake would like know? Like he would look at him and be like, "That's Lorenzo Insigne." Like he wouldn't have to like. This is the ultimate test here. We're like, would someone have to tell Drake, "This is Lorenzo Insigne. He just signed for Toronto. He's like a big deal." Like,
That's a good question.
Is he at that level where like someone has to whisper in Drake's ear who he is, or does Drake just know? I think someone has to whisper to Drake.
Maybe if Drake was like really watching Cristiano when he was at Juventus, maybe when they played Napoli.
No way he was watching freaking Juventus, Venezia. Like there's just.
No, I'm saying he would watch the bigger games, like when they would play Napoli. Napoli was playing real well then.
Drake is like a World Cup watcher, like, and that's nothing wrong with that.
He's a Champions League watcher, apparently, from his music recently. He's been making some Champions League bars, talking about Benzema and some guys from England and things like that. So
tough to see. I don't know that Drake is totally knowing ball and knowing Lorenzo Insigne. That's it. I think that's a tier 2 below where Drake's knowledge ends.
And if he plays Ultimate Team, he knows who he is.
If Drake wants to argue with me about it, I would love to have a conversation. Reach out, pal.
Come on the show.
That's it for us tonight, though, Dom. Any parting words?
Yeah. What I'm angry about.
This is the can't let it go section.
I really can't. So, I mean, we both agree, right? We aren't completely sold on Bremer, right? So, I think you know where this is going. EA recently just released this past weekend the Serie A Team of the Season. This is a very emotional time for me. as you know, there's a lot of Milan players that I expected to get in, and there were a lot of Milan players that did get in. Rafael Leao was the headliner, the highest rated card, 97 overall. Absolutely looks disgusting. Sandro Tonali got in there. Teo Hernandez got in there. Mike Magnan got in there. But do you know who's missing that? Do you know who Bremer got put in over?
Tomori.
Yeah, my man Tomori, who had an absolutely incredible end of the season. Absolutely incredible season just in general. It was only missing for like 2 months. Does not get a card. He's not in the SBCs. He's not an objective player. He's not getting released. There is no team of the season Tomori card that has been released, which I think he was completely deserving of. I think he was deserving more than Bremer in this case, who did get one. And I just think it was absolutely ridiculous. The other two there were 3 center backs that got in there. It was Koulibaly, who definitely deserves one. Skriniar, who, but you know he's going to get in there. And then Bremer. Yeah, like it's kind of there just to satisfy the inner fans because, you know, they would raise havoc.
Dom,
but,
I'm so sorry that happened to you. Let me tell you this. Let me console you
my chat
with
saying
this.
Maguire is clear.
That's
crazy.
Clear of what? Clear of the charges from Greece last summer? I don't know. I think
clear of being a rational thinking person. Did you see the thing? He went to some World War II memorial with like just him and like the England team director or something like that. And they said he wanted to like get like soak up the moment, but like it looks like he's obviously posing for photos because the photos got posted online of like him at the memorial, and he's getting ripped by Twitter right now.
Yikes. Well, Dom, let me console you with this because you could be this person who you tagged me in this tweet that thinks that Zaniolo at 22 is better than Ronaldinho at 22.
I almost forgot about this.
Was making the case that Zaniolo, this is the bozo of the week, and maybe this will be a segment. Bozo of the week. Thinking that Nico Zaniolo, the only time that he can be in the same sentence as Ronaldinho is that they both played the same sport. That's it. So shout out to you, Sisa Bef on Twitter for saying that Dino only shined for 3-4 seasons of his career. If you don't see the impact of Zaniolo, then open your eyes. Zaniolo's seen a lot of impact, actually. 2 ACL tears. That's a lot of impact injuries. I think maybe we should stop seeing impact on Zaniolo. And I love him. I think Nico's great. This is the most insane thing I've ever read in my life. Now, you're talking about performance, but you start by saying, goals this. What changed your mind? It was a whole thread about people being upset. Apparently, Roma are interested in selling Zaniolo for like $60 million. No one's buying him for that.
Wild amount of money.
I guess that means they're just hanging on to him. Who knows? But
Jesus Christ. It's literally ridiculous.
God bless. Listen, Twitter is great for the bozos.
Nobody knew Ronaldinho at 22 years old. Yeah, but they knew him soon enough.
It's not even that. It's just like, brother, they like...
Man made his Brazil debut and scored a brace.
You don't have to make that comparison. No one was making you do that. No one is making you do that.
They don't even play in the same position.
You didn't have to do that. You didn't. I would take Ronaldinho at 4 a.m. staggering out of the Paris club of whatever he was in at that age than Zaniolo. And that's no disrespect to Zaniolo. But listen, Ronaldinho in a hangover, probably the best 3 hangover players ever. Like, that's just it. That's facts. Sorry. Him and Maradona. That's it. That's the all hangover team. That's all you need. Maradona played hungover and high all at the same time. Like, what do you want? Come on.
Hey, before we leave, can I leave you with one question? My chat was asking, who would you take, Prime Neymar or Prime Bale?
Oof. If I could be a nerd about it, it would depend a little bit on the team that I'm setting up. People have forgotten how great Bale was. His last 2 seasons at Spurs and like his first 2 or 3 at Madrid were like, dude, fucking crazy.
That was nutty.
His athleticism as well was like insane. Everyone always talks about like that Copa del Rey final goal where he just runs the entire field and just outruns everyone. His like big breakthrough game was that game against Inter and in the Champions League and just like absolutely dusting Maicon, who at the time was one of the better fullbacks in the world.
Literally incredible.
Damn, I think Neymar's better though. Bale, like, that's tough. Honestly, if it's like a 1 game, I might take Prime Bale. I mean that, but I think if like I'm building a team for like a full season, it's Neymar. But like if you're asking me like I have to win a final, Bale is like a big game player, man. Like no bullshit. Not that Neymar isn't. I'm not trying to say that like, but Bale's had some moments that like people dream of having. Like Ronaldo has not had some of the moments that Bale has had. Like I mean,
That's a great
final
point.
winning moments.
That's
Like
a great point.
I don't know, man. Like Bale has in the last few years have done a lot, I think, to obfuscate what people remember about Gareth Bale and how he'll be remembered. I think is like the Wales Golf Madrid thing and all that, but which is fucking hilarious, by the way. But like, I think people have forgotten that like prime Gareth Bale, as Twitter would say, was a problem. Like he was kind of unplayable. Like, but Neymar was too. I don't want to make it seem like Neymar wasn't. It's probably Neymar.
A third team comes in and offers you prime Hazard. Does that change your mind on anything?
No.
Fair.
I can't remain unbiased about Hazard, and the guy went a whole year without scoring. You're not in the conversation, Chief. It's a different conversation to beat. Like, I'm sorry, you can have slumps. You can't go a whole season without scoring and start talking to me about how this is one of the best players you've ever seen in your life. At no point was he even the best Belgian player in the Premier League. It was always Kevin De Bruyne. It always has been Kevin De Bruyne. And when it wasn't Kevin De Bruyne, it was Jan Vertonghen. Like, I'm sorry. Eden Hazard, overfluffed, overstimulated, great player. He's not like this, like, true all-timer, best I've ever seen. Prime Bale, prime Neymar, clear of Eden Hazard. No bones about it. I said this even as a Liverpool fan. It was like the only team that he routinely scored against every single time. I didn't enjoy seeing Eden Hazard play, but I don't think he's in prime Neymar, prime Bale comparison for me.
There we go.
Will we ever see good Neymar again? Who knows? Got to give a shout out before we get out of here because this episode was brought to you by Bino Board.
Hey!
Bino is the next big tabletop game for your man cave / she shed. Think paper football meets foosball, and you got Bino. Bino Board is a game and lifestyle brand based in Phoenix, Arizona. Bino's goal is to provide the highest quality boards and a true brand experience. Every part of the boards have been tested time and time again for the best possible playability so that every Flicker's experience is a positive one. Bring the world together with Bino and hear someone's story from the other side of the pitch. You can go to BinoBoard.com right now. Use our code BINOUSP for 10% off your order, including the newly launched limited edition Ultraviolet board, and Team USA and Team Mexico merch. Don't forget World Cup's coming up. You're going to want to get that stuff while you can. That's code BINOUSP for 10% off your order at BinoBoard.com. This has been the Top Bins podcast with me, Matt, my co-host Dom. We'll be back next week talking about 5 Serie A players that could be on the move. And listen, if you want to be plugged in, if you want to impress your friends, you're going to want to listen to that show because you're going to be able to tell them things about players that they're just hearing about for the first time. Or maybe they bought in FIFA. But you're going to be able to tell them some real shit. They're going to know something. So tune in next week. We'll talk to you next time.